Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Here are tonight's news. U.S. President Donald Trump will prolong a ban on U.S. employment permits to year-end and broaden it to include H-1B visas used widely in the tech industry, according to the White House on Monday. A senior administration official told journalists the move would affect 525,000 jobs in the U.S., which is currently reeling from a high unemployment rate caused by the coronavirus pandemic. President Trump had repeatedly touted a strong economy, but now finds himself desperate for a political boost ahead of the November election. The executive order signed Monday afternoon will extend and widen the 60-day freeze President Trump placed on new work permits for non-U.S. citizens 2 months ago. The administration official said the new order would extend to the end of 2020 with special skills, many of them joining the U.S. technology industry. It will also cover most J visas common for academics and researchers and L visas used by companies to shift workers based overseas to their U.S. offices. The official said the order was necessary to respond to soaring unemployment that resulted from the COVID-19 shutdown. The official also stressed the H-1B visa freeze was temporary while the program is restructured, shifting from an annual lottery that feeds coders and other specialists to Silicon Valley to a system that gives priority to those foreign workers with the most value. The official also said President Trump is going to prioritize those workers who are offered the highest wages as an indicator that they can add more value to the U.S. economy. Layoffs caused by the coronavirus pandemic in the U.S. passed 45.7 million last week. Although many jobs will come back as the country reopens, there are worries that some have been irrevocably lost by the heavy financial impact on businesses and local governments. Now, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell earlier warned this month that unemployment could still be 9.3% nationwide at the end of the year, an improvement from the current 13.3%, but still devastatingly high.
Social distancing restrictions across the country, people are increasingly moving about, and many businesses are resuming operations to varying degrees. They've been receiving stimulus payments and unemployment benefits, which are supporting incomes and spending. Activity in many parts of the economy has yet to pick up, however, and overall output is far below earlier levels. Moreover, despite the improvement seen in the May jobs report, unemployment remains historically high. Weak demand, especially in sectors most affected by the pandemic, is holding down consumer prices. As a result, inflation has fallen well below our symmetric 2% objective. Indicators of longer-term inflation expectations have been fairly steady. The extent of the downturn and the pace of recovery remain extraordinarily uncertain and will depend in large part on our success in containing the virus.
More than 9 million people have now been infected with the coronavirus worldwide, of which more than half are in Europe and in the United States. At least 9,017,016 cases had been recorded at 1900 GMT Monday, of which 469,060 deaths, according to an AFP count based on official sources. The United States is the worst-hit country with 120,106 deaths. It's followed by Brazil with 50,617 deaths, Britain with 42,647, Italy with 34,657, and France with 29,663 fatalities. The World Health Organization's Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus tells a virtual health forum organized by the Dubai authorities that the greatest threat facing the world is not the virus itself, but the lack of global solidarity and global leadership.
Only by working together. that a devastating epidemic can start in any country at any time and kill millions of people because we're not prepared. I said that we do not know where or when the next global pandemic will occur, but we do know that it will exact a terrible toll, both on human life and on the global economy. But no organization and no country can fight this pandemic alone. Only by working together will we overcome this global threat. The greatest threat we face now is not the virus itself. It's the lack of global solidarity and global leadership.
Meanwhile, Spain has lifted its state of alert that had been in place for more than 3 months after the coronavirus pandemic began. Lynn Tumbaga Diaz has this report.
The regions of Barcelona and Lleida reached phase 3 of the Spanish government's de-escalation plan, the last stage of the process last June 18. The state of alarm imposed by Spain to prevent the spread of COVID-19 ended in Catalonia on Friday, after a decree signed by President Quim Torra came into force at midnight. The move, effective at midnight, means that the Catalonia as a whole will have spent just 24 hours in phase 3, the last stage of the national de-escalation plan that's been underway for weeks. Barcelona and its metropolitan area, as well as Lleida, only entered phase 3 on Thursday morning, while other parts of the northeastern region did so earlier, when regional governments regained full control of key sectors in the fight against COVID-19. On June 21st, the state of alarm officially ended. The Catalan government has decided to speed up the de-escalation and announce a set of measures for the so-called new normality after President Quim Torra signed a decree putting an end to the state of the alarm in Catalonia. Setting a single criteria is positive and fairer for announced by Catalan government will come into force on 25th of June with the replacements of the capacity percentage for indoor and outdoor spaces with a 2.5 square meter interpersonal safety area, the equivalent of the 1.5 meter safety distance. With fines of up to €100 if not observed. From Barcelona, Spain, I'm Lynn Bautista Tumbaga Diaz, and we live in interesting times.
And to England now, the coronavirus shielding scheme will be eased from July 6. Let's find out more about this shielding scheme. Joining us live.
Hi, Alma. Here is our update from the UK. Britain recorded fewer than 1,000 daily confirmed cases of coronavirus on Monday, and the daily death toll dropped to 15. As officials said, restrictions for the most vulnerable would be eased. The death toll among people who tested positive for COVID-19 rose by 15 to 42,647, the lowest daily increase since March 15, although there is always a lag in reported deaths over the weekend. A total of 958 people tested positive in the 24 hours to Monday morning, and Health Secretary Matt Hancock said only 1 in 1,700 people now had the virus, down from 1 in 400 a month ago. All those figures are coming down and pointing in the right direction, he told a daily media briefing. It shows that while there's still much to do, we are clearly making progress. Britain's coronavirus outbreak has been the deadliest in Europe, but stay-at-home orders imposed in late March are slowly being eased. In fact, some of the youngest children have gone back to school, and non-essential shops have reopened. But while most Britons have been able to get a taste of normal life, 2.2 million people in England, classified as clinically extremely vulnerable, have been advised to continue to avoid all social contact. However, as Hancock announced on Monday, from July 6, They will be allowed to meet outside in groups with a minimum of 6 people while maintaining social distancing rules. And from August 1, the entire shielding program will be paused. Let's listen in.
And for the first time since the peak, there are fewer than 5 hospitals with coronavirus. Thankfully, the number of people who have died from coronavirus each day is also coming down. The latest data show that yesterday, 15 more deaths were reported. This is the lowest figure since mid-March, since the 15th of March.
The first from July the 6th, which is a time period from when other lockdown measures have been eased, so we can ensure we're monitoring the epidemiology continuously. We're advising that people who are shielding may want to start meeting in groups of up to 6 people outdoors, including those outside their household. If you live alone or you're a lone parent, you can think of forming a support bubble with another household. And then secondly, from August the 1st, we will pause shielding. We'll still be advising people to stay at home as much as possible and to minimise contact with others outside their household. But from August the 1st, our advice would be that people can go out to more places, see more people. This might include going to the shops, for example, or visiting a place of worship.
Cinemas, museums, and galleries will be able to reopen in England from July 4. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to announce today, as he outlines a further easing of the coronavirus restrictions. Venues closed since the middle of March will be able to reopen and welcome visitors as long as safety measures are in place. Back to you, Alma.
All right, so as I heard from your report, the advice on measures for vulnerable people has been changing. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, as stated in the article from BBC News, the UK government says that the advice can be relaxed because the chances of encountering the virus in the community continue to fall, as stated before. The government says it has worked with clinicians, GPs, charities, the voluntary sector, and patient groups on the changes. But some charities are criticizing the relaxing of the advice, saying many of the people they support do not feel it is safe to stop shielding. Over to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Aribel. With the relaxed measures, still stay safe and stay alert and stay healthy. Thank you for your update.
Thank you so much, Alma. Reporting from the United Kingdom, I am Aribel Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
In a related news, in a move that will help hospitality sector businesses as they reopen, the United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the government now recommends that where staying 2 meters from others is not possible, people can now keep a social distance of 1 meter plus. In England, let's listen in.
Where it is possible to keep 2 meters apart, people should. But where it is not, we will advise people to keep a social distance of 1 meter plus, meaning they should remain 1 meter apart while taking mitigations to reduce the risk of transmission. And we are today publishing guidance on how business can reduce the risk by taking certain steps to protect workers and customers, and these include, for instance, face-to-face seating by changing office layouts, reducing the number of people in enclosed spaces, improving ventilation, using protective screens and face coverings.
On Monday, as our EBC UK Bureau reported, Health Secretary Matt had announced plans to ease restrictions on 2.6 as clinically extremely vulnerable. They had been asked to avoid all social contact, but from July 6, they will be allowed to meet outside in groups as big as 6. And from August 1, the entire shielding program will be paused, although officials warned it could be restarted if the outbreak worsens in the winter. In other news, China threatened to retaliate against new U.S. restrictions on Chinese state media, escalating tensions between the two superpowers as they crack down on spying. Four organizations, China Central Television, China News Service, the People's Daily, and the Global Times, as foreign missions rather than media outlets in the U.S., adding to 5 others designated in February. China has already expelled more than a dozen American journalists as part of the row. Officials said all 9 Chinese staff and real estate transactions to the State Department. Their news reporting will not be restricted. State Department officials say U.S. media are free to report critically on their government, while Chinese state-run outlets report to the government. In February, China separately expelled 3 journalists from the Wall Street Journal after the newspaper ran an opinion piece with a headline that called the country the sick man of Asia, a word choice Beijing called racist. On Tuesday, Beijing decried the latest U.S. move as barefaced political suppression of Chinese media that further exposes the hypocrisy of the so-called freedom of speech and press, which the U.S. likes to flaunt. Let's listen in.
我们强烈敦促美方摒弃冷战思维、意识形态偏见，立即停止和纠正这种损人不利己的错误做法，否则中方将不得不做出必要正当反应。这是美方赤裸裸严重干扰开展正常报道活动，也进一步暴露出美方标榜的所谓新闻和言论自由的虚伪性。
China has already expelled more than a dozen American journalists as part of the row. China on Tuesday launched the final satellite in its homegrown geolocation system, designed to rival the U.S. GPS network, marking a major step in its race for market share in the lucrative sector. Take a look. Footage from the state broadcaster CCTV of the launch in southwestern Sichuan province showed the rocket blast off against a backdrop of lush mountains as a small group of onlookers filmed on their phones. China's space agency said the launch of the Beidou 3GO3 satellite from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center was originally scheduled for last Tuesday but was delayed over unspecified technical issues. Observers said completing the satellite network makes China a key player in the billion-dollar geolocation services market. Beidou, named after the Chinese term for the plane, is intended to rival the US's Global Positioning System, or GPS, Russia's GLONASS, and the European Union's Galileo.
To date, SMC infrastructure remains at the forefront of Boracay Airport's modernization. The current and long-term developments are National Airport Passenger Terminal and the extension of the existing runway to better serve bigger aircrafts. World-class access to this slice of paradise.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Ein sonniger Tag heute hier in Berlin vor dem Bundestag. Ich bin Irene Juliette Arzadon und möchte diese Gelegenheit nutzen, um ein paar Worte mit euch zu teilen. An alle Menschen da draußen. In dieser Zeit, lasst uns nicht vergessen, den Menschen zu danken, die ihr Leben für uns opfern. Sei es die Menschen, die im Krankenhaus arbeiten, in den Altenheimen sowie in den Arztpraxen, aber auch an die Menschen, die im Lebensmittelhandel sich befinden. Die Kassierer. Manchmal reicht es aus, um ihnen ein freundliches Lächeln zu geben. Denn die Menschen, die heute am Arbeiten sind, weil sie nicht so wie einige von uns zu Hause bleiben können, die sollten wir wertschätzen. Ihnen sollten wir unseren Dank ausrichten. Darum lasst uns noch mehr zusammen sie wertschätzen.
Global trade is expected to drop 18.5% year-on-year in the second quarter of this year and plunge, which nonetheless could have been much worse, according to the World Trade Organization. The WTO said that in the first quarter, the volume of merchandise trade shrank.
We all know the COVID-19 pandemic is shaking the world economy and world trade, consequently. This week, WTO economists released initial projections for the volume of global merchandise trade in the first half of the year. Now, their estimate of 2020 compared to the year before. Now, this decline is historically large. In fact, it will be the steepest on record.
Looking at the pandemic and its impact on trade, the WTO said that measures to suppress the spread of the virus, such as physical distancing and restrictions on travel and transport that were in full effect in March, April, and May, were now increasingly being relaxed. It says these developments are reflected in a variety of economic indicators, which, taken together, suggest trade may have possibly bottomed out in the second quarter of 2020. It said commercial flights, which carry much international air cargo, were down by 74% between January 5 and April 18, but had since risen by 58% through to mid-June. It also said that container port throughout also appeared to have staged a partial recovery in June compared to May. The International Trade Center says COVID-19 has hit small prices worse. Jim Hippolito joins us live from Geneva, Switzerland. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Alma. Yes, here is the latest in Geneva. From big pharma companies to small and medium-sized businesses now, or SMEs, as they're also known, and news that 1 in 5 said they must shut down for good within 3 months. While 2 in 3 micro and small firms said that the coronavirus crisis is the same. The findings from the International Trade Center, or ITC, are important because smaller companies form the bulk of the global economy. They are also seen as the key driver of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, 17 pledges to fight everything from poverty to inequality, agreed by the international community in 2015. While most countries experienced some form of COVID-19 shutdown, ITC found that it was lockdowns in China, the European Union, and the United States that had the greatest trade impact on small and medium-sized firms. That's because these 3 economies account for more than 60% of global imports and exports. $126 billion hit in lost profits this year. This disruption is also having a knock-on effect on developing countries, and ITC has estimated that African exporters are set to lose more than $2.4 billion in exports this year as a result of factory loss. More than 70% is caused by the temporary disruption of the supply chain linkages with the EU, the UN body said. Companies in the services sector are the firms hardest hit by the COVID-19, especially those providing accommodation and food services. According to the ITC, 93 countries have applied temporary export measures related to the virus, including export bans or restrictions on medical products, but also food. Just the background, established in 1964, the International Trade Center, ITC, is the joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Jim, for your update there in Geneva, Switzerland. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alma. Report live from Geneva, Switzerland. This is Jim Hippolito, and we live in interesting times.
And just like in other parts of the world, tourism is badly hit. It is a major casualty in the pandemic in Greece. Tristan Rahino joins us live from Athens, Greece. Hello, Tristan.
On travel and business imposed to stem the coronavirus spread were imposed. According to the Bank of Greece figures, provisional figures show travel receipts stood at 7 million euros in April, compared with 544 million euros in the same month last year, or a drop of 98.7%. Greece's economy depends heavily on tourism, which directly and indirectly accounts for around 20% of the annual gross domestic product. But the country is now reopening to visitors from abroad, with the government hoping to salvage what it can from the summer tourist season. Over the last few weeks, the government's initiatives have increasingly focused on the tourism sector. The latest easing decisions have been mostly devoted to tourism-related activities. Yachting and restaurants have reopened, and recently, accommodation, museums, historic sites, thermal springs have reopened too. The reopening schedule will be completed on July 1, when fairs, concerts, and artistic events will also be allowed. Only large-scale public has 3,287 coronavirus cases, 190 confirmed deaths, and 1,374 recovered cases. Despite fewer COVID cases in comparison to its neighbors, the Greek government reacted quickly by implementing strict containment measures, including a nationwide lockdown, school closures, local mobility restrictions, and selective travel bans on international travelers. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Tristan, for your updates there in Athens, Greece. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, Alma. I'm Tristan, reporting live from Athens, Greece, and we live in interesting times.
Now to Italy. The country has opened its borders to revive its tourism sector, badly hit by the pandemic. Jasmine Jamora joins us live from Milan, Italy.
Italy attempts to rescue its tourism industry and reopen its borders to Europe, United Kingdom, Schengen area, Andorra, Monaco, Vatican City, and San Marino.
Travelers coming from said countries don't have to undergo quarantine unless they have been in any other country in the 14 days before reaching Italy. Inside the airport, all passengers must respect all the behavioral rules necessary to avoid contagion, including wearing a protective mask and keeping a distance of at least 1 meter from others. Armando Brunini, SEA Group, said, "We are recording slight signs of recovery, and we hope that restrictions on circulation within Schengen area will be removed by fall, with a further increase in traffic. Nonetheless, we know that we should wait a few years to return to pre-COVID-19 traffic levels." A severe nationwide lockdown was imposed in Italy in March as the country emerged as a global hotspot for the coronavirus pandemic. This isn't as a possible route to some sort of economic recovery. Italy is currently facing the worst recession since the Second World War. Deputy Health Minister Pierpaolo Sileri said in Rai Radio that there were no signs so far of a second wave of coronavirus contagion after Italy ended its lockdown. From social distancing to washing hands, and careful monitoring is still needed.
Before booking your flight, view the official government travel websites of the countries you want to visit for the latest travel guidelines. Reporting from EBC, Jasmine Jamora. We live in interesting times.
Plant-based food is having a moment in Canada. The government of Canada announced that it's contributing close to $100 million for the new Merit Proteins plant in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It said this will create opportunities as well to allow them to grow and export beyond the borders. Let's listen in.
As people around the world start eating more plant-based products, and a chance to create good, well-paying jobs. We've already invested in this space with the Prairies-based Protein Industries Supercluster, supporting thousands of jobs. But this industry is growing fast, so we're not stopping there. Today, I can announce that our government is contributing almost $100 million for the new Merit Functional Foods location in Winnipeg. This facility will be a world leader in plant-based proteins, jobs in a fast-growing field. And by using 100% Canadian inputs, it will also support farmers who produce the canola and yellow peas used in Merit's products. If this pandemic has been an unprecedented challenge for our country, it has also been an important opportunity to figure out what really matters in our communities, to have meaningful conversations about how we can take care of those around us, and perhaps, above all, to think about what kind of future we want to build together. We have the chance to shape our country and our world for the better, and I know that we're up to that task. Merci.
The company Merit intends to use only Canadian-grown peas and canola and claims to be the first in the world that will produce canola protein for the food industry. Demand for plant-based proteins is soaring as people around the world seek to find meat alternatives in a bid to improve their health and that of the planet. The 94,000 square foot Merit plant in Winnipeg Centerport is slated to open in December 2020, employing around 80 people. Nestle, the world's largest food and drink company, announced that it would source plant-based protein from the Winnipeg-based facility earlier this year.
Around us, and perhaps above all,
German authorities on Tuesday ordered a new lockdown for an entire district, the first since easing coronavirus restrictions and a major setback to hopes of a swift return to normality. Take a look. Armin Laschet, state premier of North Rhine-Westphalia, said for the first time in Germany, they will return an entire district to the measures that applied several weeks ago. And the move came after a coronavirus outbreak at a slaughterhouse in the town of Reda Weidenbrueck that has left more than 1,500 workers out of a total of nearly 7,000 infected. The outbreak in Germany's most populous state is the biggest since the country began lifting the lockdown in early May. The new lockdown means a return to measures first introduced in March, with cinemas, museums, concert halls, bars, gyms, swimming pools, and saunas shut down. Several outbreaks at slaughterhouses, not just in Germany but also in France, have put a spotlight on the working and housing conditions facing the workers, many of which come from Romania or Bulgaria. But Germany has also seen new coronavirus clusters in residential buildings in Lower Saxony and Berlin, where 370 families living in high-rise flats were placed under quarantine in one neighborhood last week. With new infection rates sharply down from highs in March and a death toll significantly lower than those of its neighbors, Germany became the first major EU country to begin easing virus restrictions about 7 weeks ago. But Chancellor Angela Merkel has repeatedly warned against complacency before a viable vaccine is found. Eagle News will be right back.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said,
Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganun din ang iyong hinlalaki, kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos ay iyong palapulsuhan. Gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
Welcome back. Tennis world number one Novak Djokovic said he had tested positive for the coronavirus, joining a slew of other infected players who took part in an exhibition tennis tournament in the Balkans. A statement from Djokovic said, and I quote, "The moment we arrived in Belgrade, we went to be tested. He said, my result is positive, just as Jelina's, his wife, while the results of our children are negative." He apologized, saying, "I am extremely sorry for each individual case of infection. I hope that it will not complicate anyone's health situation and that everyone will be fine." The top-ranked Djokovic was the face behind the Adria Tour, a series of exhibition events that started in the Serbian capital and then moved to Zadar, Croatia last weekend. Grigor Dimitrov, a three-time Grand Slam semifinalist from Bulgaria, said Sunday he tested positive for the virus. Borna Koric played Dimitrov on Saturday in Zadar and said Monday he has also tested positive. On Tuesday, Viktor Troicki became the third player from the tour to test positive. He announced that he and his pregnant wife have both been diagnosed with the virus. The former top 20 player from Serbia played against Djokovic in Belgrade during the first part of the two-leg tour. In other news, after a 3-month-long closure, the Opera House in Barcelona, Spain, LSU, reopened with its first concert. 4 special guests, 2,292 plants. Now, the initiative was the idea of Spanish artist Eugenio Ampudia and looks to examine the relationship with nature and the impact of the lockdown has had on public spaces. Take a look.
Cuando pensé en el liceo, de repente pensé, ¿por qué no entramos como malas hierbas? Pensé al principio dentro del liceo y lo colonizamos, ¿no? Y empiezan a crecer por todas partes naturaleza y lo convertimos en algo vivo, incluso cuando no hay personas. Y decidí que para ejemplificar eso lo mejor sería que cada una de las plantas tuviera su butaca y su maceta. Luego esta tarde lo vamos a retransmitir en streaming para que la gente lo ponga en sus casas para que lo oigan sus plantas.
The idea of the concert came to conceptual artist Eugenio Ampudia during the lockdown when the normal bustle of urban living was silenced. The sound of birdsong was much clearer, and the plants around his house grew more vigorously. So the idea was to have people reflect on the concept of sustainability and their relationship with nature. The LSU says it hopes the show reaffirms the value of art, music, and nature and paves the way for returning to normal activity. But replacing the sound of leaves rustling with actual applause would be another step in the right direction. The concert was streamed live on the theater's website, so those who wanted to could put it on for their own plants at home to hear. After the concert, all the plants were to be donated to healthcare professionals who have worked on the front line fighting the virus over the past few months. And our EBC correspondent, Cristel Mapa, explores the new normal of traveling around Bangkok.
Let's go. today I'll be traveling to one of the famous tourist spots here. And so some bloggers are saying that it is the perfect time to tour around since the tourists are not here yet. So let's see. And come with me as we travel in Bangkok in the new normal. So the new normal in the SkyTrain and the MRT stations, you are not allowed to board the train without this mask. Yes, it is mandatory to wear mask whenever you are in public places or public transportation. Okay, so we are now here in the Asok station. This is the interchange for SkyTrain and the MRT station. So pretty much everything is back to normal here in Thailand. Going to the right. Okay. Sukhumvit, and we are going to directly connected to the Grand Palace and Wat Po. Outside the MRT Sanam Chai station, and it is directly connected to the Siam Sea. So now I have now located my way on how we can go to the Grand Palace from Sanam Chai station. So just use your map in your phones, and I suggest not to ride the tuk-tuk. Not to ride the tuk-tuk because it's a scam. Sorry for that. You can actually just walk. It's just a walking distance from this station going to the Grand Palace. And I think it's also better to walk so that you can just enjoy the view. Even if it's quite humid, it's part of the travel. So just enjoy it. So let's go. Okay, I will show you this one. Okay, so this is the Wat Po and the entrance is there. So as you can see, it's under construction. Okay, so we have read some reports that foreigners are not allowed to enter Wat Po as of now. Even expats. It's because it's under construction, they say. And they don't want to charge the expats. And seeing nothing but construction. And just as any information as well, Wat Po is where the reclining Buddha is. As usual, it's mainit. I'm near the entrance, so I am lining up to enter the Grand Palace. And just imagine if the tourists would do this when they come back. I think by this time the line would already reach the other side of the road. I think it's just for temperature checking. So now there is a requirement that you need to check in using this QR code. Okay, it's called Thai China app. So there's an option for English. Okay, so you are now checked in this place. So this is for contact tracing. They call it Thai China app. And there's also an option wherein you can do it manually. Just write your name and then your phone number. So we are now Grand Palace. At this time, no tourists. It's generally quiet. Are inside complex.